Please do, yeah.
If you go back to the UI, most models that use this view, and correct me if I'm wrong, Terry or Alexandra, or Lee, I believe most models that use this view are issuables.
That's
We can
probably
find-
true, but I don't know.
Is that not true?
I think we have others as well. Like I think we use this searchable thing. So by models you mean what
Yeah.
is that?
So
Looks like just alerts and incidents are using this specific component, but I guess there
Okay.
might be other implementations of the same looking UI, if you were.
and it is my understanding that incidents fall under the issuable umbrella.
Correct.
And so
Yeah,
the thing about that is, like, to create this reusable behavior, unfortunately, with like merge, like we looked at merge request issues and all the things that looked, if you squint your eyes hard enough, it looks like an issue. We created this base class issuable, and that's how most of the reusable behavior is encapsulated. But now we kind of have this God base class issuable, which is in charge of way too much, and it has functionality that you can't really extract from it easily or reuse just easily with this like active inactive counts and the pagination and stuff like that. So like a base, I mean, using inheritance isn't the best tool for creating the reusable behavior. So it would be really cool if there was a Ruby pattern for us to have models that we can quite easily hook into this interface that the GraphQL glue code would be expecting, of needing these separate counts and the pagination and all that's all taken care of nicely. Like,
So this is, I'm just going to add a whole another level of whatever I want to call it as well. So that was only half of the problem. I also had to create this nasty thing for handling the sorting on the back end. And again, I feel like there must have been a much easier, drier, reusable way of doing this. So let's just throw this whole kind of what is life into the mix.
I guess there are some ways to kind of instead of doing all that, to just define some how do you call them, annotation like things where you just list the things that you want to sort by, and then it will create all of this stuff for you. So yeah, there is some.
Do you know if we do that anywhere at the moment, or?
No, I don't think we do that. Well, we kind of do that, but not for this type of things. But we do it, for instance, to annotate something as being, let me think, like mentionable. So like you would say that the title and the description is something that is mentionable, which means that it will get parsed for any sort of references, like reference to user, to project, to an issue, and so on and so forth. So like all you do is say mentionable title, right? Mentionable description. So you basically can do something similar for like sortable first name, last name, email, and so on. And that will create these scopes for you, basically.
That sounds like an interesting, yeah. And I'm going to open up one more because I had to do this somewhere else as well. Contact sort enum. So I just had to create so much boilerplate.
Yeah, well, yeah, that can be. I think we have examples where you just list this in an array and then reuse it in all these places. So then you can iterate through the basically through the array and not have to write every single line of that.
I'm wondering if any of these other, I think I was looking at incidents and alerts or incidents probably are alerts. I don't know if they're the same thing or different things. Incidents, doesn't look like it.
Yeah, but I kind of see what you're saying, for instance, for pagination, right? I think we can have something more implemented, like more basic, and you'd not have to do that for every single resolver, because I guess you can generalize that every resolver would want to be paginated anyway. So
can you clarify what the sorts are doing on the model?
So in order to
like, does an active record like kind of come up? Isn't this stuff out of the box with active record? Like being able to sort?
Yeah, that's a good point. So first thing, as I understand it, you shouldn't really, this could be completely wrong. It might be that sorting's okay in finders in certain places, but I know we've got COPs and best practices that say like you should only do certain things in the model, for example. And I think maybe sorting's one of those.
No, the scopes need to be in. So you cannot do order in the finders and so on. You want it to be defined in one place, and that's the model. Like what becomes kind of tricky is you have this organization sorting, right? So now you need to do join, but there is no easy way to know which ones of these need to have the join and which ones don't need to have the join. So like you can kind of remove a lot of the boilerplate for the basic attributes, the ones that you have up until the organization, right?
I would be totally cool with if this had to be some kind of yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the potential for like reusability, there's like GraphQL glue code that of just defining the types and the resolvers. I think if you had like a finder that adhered to a common interface, that would be interesting. Like you could just generate, the glue code without having to manually implement it every time. But then I don't think we have any kind of like abstract finder. The only abstract finder I think we have is an issuable finder. But that's the only thing I've seen, and I don't play around the backend code a whole lot. But I don't see what would prevent us from having like an abstract finder, and maybe that would make more sense than trying to attach like includes or mixing something into the model, like keeping all this reusable code in the model. Maybe that's problematic. Maybe we want to have a reusable finder or something. Like, what if this context finder was more abstract? Is that possible?
It's I think it's difficult to have an abstract finder in the sense that you'll want to extend it anyway. Like every single model is so different from everything else, right? The even though it feels it does the same thing in like searching through a table, it still has its own attributes, first name, last name, which is not in the issue, right? So then the abstract model doesn't feel like it will actually do anything.
But like across all of it, pagination is the same. Like
yeah,
across
that
all of it.
I agree with, because like you can probably paginate by, well, yes and no. I agree that pagination is kind of the same. It depends also by how do you order or what do you order by, right? But I guess that can be extracted in its own specific implementation and then passed on to the pagination.
It is interesting. I may be misunderstanding sort of where you're headed, Paul, but sort of like looking at this and thinking, well, here I've got sort of something which seems a bit Okay, so this is kind of like a validation that's kind of specific to contacts, but then we grab, I'm going to call it like the master list, and then we apply all of the filters, and then we apply sorting, and conditionally, depending on whether we're counting, we've then got this. So each of these things does feel like it could be fairly abstracted to some kind of interface, if that's the right term in Ruby, where, you know, what's the sorting logic,
I mean,
is
let's
there some
just for curiosity, maybe let's just compare against issuable finder or work items finder or something like that, just out of curiosity.
I would look, but I'm currently doing the one-line install on my laptop, so it's a new laptop though, so it's pretty sweet. Hopefully,
and so this is an issuable pattern I see all the time. You're good, Terry. You're contributing, because sometimes I say something and you look like you're deep in thought. I'm like, maybe
I'm learning.
that's not right.
Oh, no. This is cool. I haven't seen the work items finder, but I have been in and out of the issues and merge requests and issuables finders quite a bit for my
I imagine being in search, you're really, really familiar with this.
Some of these, yeah.
But this is what's so frustrating. This pattern that happened with issuables is just a little frustrating to me, because like this is old GitLab code, and we're regularly paying off, you know, paying the interest of this technical debt of encapsulating this reusable behavior through inheritance. And issuable is not a really great abstraction, as merge requests and issues, you know, they may have looked really similar at one point and then they really diverged. And then you have other things like issuables, and things get really complex with issuable land.
Yeah, I've even seen sometimes where there's like front end stuff where people are starting to like separate things out and be like very specific about like, actually this isn't just issuable, this is only for merge requests. And so like you just need to remove the whole remove the
yeah, it gets weird where it's like we'll have in the front end code, there's things like if issue type equals merge request, like you get weird weird lines like that. So this is a very complex finder, obviously, and but I do feel like, hey, there's need for, we do this pattern a lot, and it would be cool if there's a way to encapsulate it. I think I don't know if does Ruby support what you were talking, Alexandru, like having annotations. Can you do annotations in Ruby?
Well, not like, I don't know what you understand by annotation. I have a
Like
bit
coming
of
from like C#
Java,
or something.
I have a bit of Java backend experience where you do add something and that's considered an annotation. It's not, I don't know actually. Maybe there is something like that in Ruby as well. But what we do is like, if you open even issuable RB, and then look for, like this, like redact field, right? So what this would do is basically would do some stuff on the description field, so that we can do something like this within the finders, I would guess, where you'd say scope by like first name, or order by first name. So instead of writing the method, you'd do this, and then you'd have
one that I've seen,
a helper method that will take these params and just implement basically the method for you.
Right.
Something like that. I'm not a huge fan of this because, it kind of hides some of the law. But
That's a good point. It's really indirect, like, and it's weird when these annotations, which look like, oh, I don't really need to test these, like the annotation works, but it can cause like catastrophic issues if you get something wrong there. That's an interesting point. So the other like approach to like solving boilerplate is generating code. And have you all in the back end ever talked about like code generators? I personally, this is just my personal preference. I feel like generating code is it's a red flag that, you know, as soon as you create a machine to start creating duplicate code, like that starts to
Yeah,
bother
definitely a red flag. The only thing that immediately springs to mind, another community contributors recently made some changes to the, I forget what they called it exactly, but the Rails model template generator. So when you do like Rails G generate migration, it creates a new model and a little bit of boilerplate around like a migration script and a model and a few bits like that. So yeah, I mean, when you think about it, it is, generally speaking, when you create a new model, you're going to want the model itself, you're going to want a spec for the model, you're going to want the migration script to create the table, you're going to want a finder, a GraphQL type. There's quite a lot of stuff. But I guess all at different points in time. Like I know with this, we didn't create a contacts finder initially. It wasn't needed until we introduced a way to search for contacts, or and the same thing here. You know, we didn't need the counts until we decided we wanted to improve the list and add the pagination and all that kind of stuff. So, but that being said, I don't think it would be bad if these things were there from the beginning. But I'm not sure I would be very overly comfortable on the pattern being that, yeah, the code is generated, as opposed to, I really like, you know, when I first manually wrote a validation, would it be validation? I don't know if it's validation, but a method that essentially stripped white space from the end of these fields, and then some reviewer or maintainer said, hey, like, we've got something that does that, you don't need to rewrite that code. And that was like, awesome, wicked, great. So I like that idea, but you know, I realized that there's a wider audience that would need to buy into that. And you know, how many of these sort of problems, and I probably haven't very well defined these problems that I'm bringing into the table, would that be able to address?
Yeah.
I think we can create something like strip attribute for the finders, and just instead of that do filter by and then specify and at least that will work for like very simplistic filters. And then if you need anything that's more complicated than that, you just write your own method or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that would help a lot, but
so let me just
yeah.
go.
I guess I'm interested to see what it looks like, because I feel like the finders, yeah, there's quite a few of them, more than I realized. There's actually, I don't remember how many finders there are, but there's a lot.
It feels like we almost have something's off if we have, you know, for every model we create almost a new finder for that model. Like something's off there, because the finding is almost the same for every model, you know?
Yeah, and well, some of them return one record, right? And some, I found this out like a few weeks ago. Like some of them return one record. Like it's like, I'm looking for this thing. Some of them are looking for these things.
and how cool would it be, and so even looking at this, I'm in brainstorming mode. So it's like this might be really bad ideas. How cool would it be if instead of just contacts finder, which has a flag, are we doing counts or not, and that adds to the complexity, we had a generalized count finder which based on the model and attributes on the model can figure out, hey, here's how we want to count the thing. And we just return a count. Or I have my records finder, which is I'm returning the actual items of the thing. So the fact
So
that
you
we
could have an item finder potential. So one for an item finder to find a specific
right,
item.
that's a
one
bit
for records finder
yeah.
and one counts finder. Yeah.
It's a little bit of a code smell when you have the same function returns different things based on a flag. That's a maybe polymorphism is the appropriate approach. But when we have one of these for every kind of model, I understand the desire to not want to create contacts count finder, contacts item finder. That's going to be way too much. But if we're solving the same problem for every model, I'm oversimplifying this. I know I am. So
the one thing, and I felt like maybe I could see that thought in Alexandru's head there when you were talking, Paul, is that I think that there probably are. I'm going to say that I think that there are always going to be some specifics in the finders, although I'm not sure you were necessarily saying that there wouldn't be. But and this is a perfect example because we've immediately got this check that probably doesn't happen for many, if any, other finders, that contacts only exist on root groups. And then some other quite good examples is that the search, although that's something that's then implemented, I presume, on here is then a fuzzy search. So you've got fuzzy searches versus non-fuzzy searches.
Yeah. So you could put those specifics inside the model. The other, I think looking at patterns here, I think this is where the rare case for using one of the official patterns, a strategy pattern would be sufficient, because you would have, here's my contacts model, here's my contacts finder strategy. And so when I use one of these reusable finders, I would say, hey, when we were looking for, that takes just a strategy type. And it would say, hey, here's how we search for contacts. Here's how we filter for contacts, whatever. And so that's this is the kind of thing I think the strategy pattern tries to adopt. But I realized, man, that's really close to Java, and we don't want to make anything that looks like Java. So
not necessarily, but the strategy pattern will probably not solve it all, because then you need to pick one strategy, and a lot of the times all these finders do combine multiple strategies in that context, where you want to filter by something and also search by something and also to sort by something and also do some counts, because it basically does the same thing. It just applies a count. But when you apply a count, you don't need the order by, because that adds performance on a performance hit on the database and so on and so forth. So I mean, we can definitely do something gradually that removes some of these repetitive patterns that are easy to replace right away. So yeah, that's something. I guess the thing is, nobody really took time to do that, because everyone was really busy with their own stuff. But yeah, that's something we can work on.
And that is the risk, though, too, is doing, when you abstract the wrong abstraction, or something is really hard to understand, that's gonna do some damage to the code base. So the other idea, if we can't find a simple abstraction that we like, abstracting the tests, because that's the other side of duplicate code that's really frustrating, is we have to duplicate all the unit tests for whatever unit we're making. But if we're creating multiple versions of the same thing that follow the same interface, it would be interesting to see if we could even duplicate or encapsulate how we test a thing. Because then that will
Yeah,
allow us to just keep these really simple. We don't have to deal with any abstraction complexity, and we're have some regular way to enforce that it, I don't know,
Yeah.
that our
it-
tests stay consistent.
Yeah, you made me think of okay. Something with the sidekick workers, because we kind of implemented these like top of the file, like almost like annotations. The workers have them, and we have tests that kind of test them. Our advanced search migrations have them too. Let me see if I can figure out what code we use for that. Let me go in my browser. Hold on.
it's really interesting actually because you know I've written most of the code to get this this working, and I haven't started writing the tests yet. And what like I am dreading it because I've got to figure out obviously what we should test and what we shouldn't, but certainly having introduced all of these scopes and this method, which my terminology is going to be wrong, but has lots of branches, all of a sudden makes me think, am I seriously going to have to write, I don't know what this is, like 20 test cases for this single method before I even then start to say, well, you know, this is then called by a finder, which is then called by a GraphQL resolver, which, and, you know, this could quite easily, you know, double the amount of code, if not more, that I'm going to have to write just to test, which under the hood, this is just, well, I don't know, scope. So what do you call them? Like an out of the box feature, but because we've put this crazy thing on top of it, but like you said earlier, I think if we could just define this as an array of supported fields to sort on or something along those lines, then all of a sudden hopefully that means we kind of don't need to test it because it's just passing the parameter through to this. I don't know if you can pass parameters to scopes. I'm sure you can by doing some kind of weird, I don't know what you do, something like that or that.
Yeah.
And I think that this, in my eyes, is maybe the simplest bit that we could start by simplifying. Simplest bit we can simplify. the least contentious sort of like, yeah, most clearly repetitive, undry thing that we're doing here. The counting and some of the findery stuff, etc., is a bit more of a can of worms. Like I think there'll be a lot of opinionation or whatever the term is, a lot of different approaches. But this seems like something that I even feel like we've probably already done it somewhere, but I just don't know the, what do you call it, the grep foo or whatever to find what pattern we've maybe implemented somewhere else already.
Yeah. So this is those scopes, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what's like the scope on line 32 declares that, hey, this is an order of the first name field ascending, and that's what's getting triggered on line 48 when we get a symbol, a first name ask, then we do the order of the thing. Like, is that okay?
Yeah. So
the problem for me is what we get in the order, because we get like first name ask. If we can get two params here, we can simplify these two by quite a bit, as you suggested, by passing in the attribute by which you want to sort and the direction ascending or descending, right? So
yeah, and that's the other thing. I mean, even this could this probably not.
Can you
but
can you make an array of this? Like, can you do here array
funny,
of,
I was just gonna say something like build
not even that, just like first name and then
order.
ask.
We do either that or yeah, like so you're saying, or more like this.
Yeah. And remove the desk from the end.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and now if that value, you can pass it on to order by, then in the method in the model. Here you
In
just,
here, we just pass this straight. Yeah, so have some kind of
yeah,
we'll call
filter
it
by or
scope.
some kind of scope. Yeah.
Order by. Oh
Or
no,
order by.
can't.
I mean, do you
No,
need
I
to even have
can't
a
use.
scope? Can you just call order in the method itself, line
Order can conflict with something defined already on the Rails side, I
Oh,
think.
okay. Okay.
That's a
So
good point.
order
So,
by, comma, and then you have that dash greater sign.
there, I do. And then the call. Yeah, I don't want to use order by here, do I? Because that's the same.
Yeah. You probably don't even need order. Oh, yeah, you may need it for these two organization and whatnot thing, but yeah.
I mean, is it oh man, I can't help myself. Is it is this defining all these order methods? Is this really the like responsibility of the model? Like, could we just say like here's our sortable fields and just call
Yeah,
it?
that's what I was suggesting.
I think that's a good idea.
As creating some sort of a I don't remember how Rails calls it, but basically you say like sort by these fields, and then that will create all of these scopes. You still need the scopes because like that's what generates the SQL that is going to be passed on to.
Yeah, I know what I've seen it.
So the finder can't do this. The finder can't say like order by or whatever. Like the finder isn't in scope land.
Yeah, the finder it can do it, but we don't allow it just because we want it to be in one place, like all because then you start doing it in different services, like order by this, order by that. And we want it to be kept in one single place. When you want to modify it for any reason, just do it in one place.
Okay. Yeah, having a sortable fields things looks cool. And it's not, it wouldn't be that complex to do the one that needs the include, right? Like that's just a
I'm trying to find where that magic is. I've definitely seen it before.
Oh wow. Then, yeah, maybe we can just
what's it called? Processor. These are the actual processors.
What are you looking for?
Where you have a method that kind of loops or and creates methods.
Yeah.
I think I found it. I might be wrong. No, it's not in here. Oh yeah. Each. Oh no, that's creating a listener. I've definitely seen. Yeah,
there is something even in our GitLab code base, but
I'm sure that sure. We it's probably uses the word define.
Yeah,
so
define method or something like that.
Yeah, well remembered. Yeah, so we can loop through something and we can actually dynamically define methods. So whether there's a defined scope.
Yeah, I think we have something for scopes as well. internal, maybe in internal IDs somewhere. I feel like I've seen something, but maybe I'm just like.
But that seems like a.
Oh yeah, that's something that we can do, basically generate these scopes.
And so yeah, we would define an array of kind of sortable fields to automatically define the scopes.
Yeah, you'd say orderable by, and then you list all the fields that you want to be ordered by, right? And
yeah,
that orderable by will basically go and say, I have this defined, I have this array as a param, so you iterate through that array value to create a scope for basically every single
yeah,
field
awesome.
that you listed there.
That sounds really good. I'm just wondering then the next small sort of step in terms of then cutting out this middleman. So do we think we would probably create the scopes with the same sort of syntax? So it's what's the field name underscore what's the direction?
Yeah, I think that feels reasonable.
Now I remember seeing there's something that again I don't think we allow. I think it might be for security reasons. The way that you would then, if I was passed an array that contained.
Actually, you don't even need that, right? Because then you can pass in. You can basically create just two scope, order by ascending, and then pass it the field name that you have in the array, and order by descending. So you basically create only two scopes instead of creating all these scopes for every single.
So you're thinking more this sort of route than the other.
Yeah. So basically you'll do this. You don't even need to then specify all of those.
Is it important for the model to allow list what fields you can sort by?
Maybe it is safer.
It's not important per se, but you need it in place to generate this SQL. So you kind of need to let the model know what for what thing you want you to generate this SQL. But yeah, if you go with this approach, the order scope, then you basically don't even need to know which columns you want to order by, because you can then call that from the finder. The finder will decide which ones I want to order by.
I wonder if that's cheating. Like the fact that we don't allow ordering from outside of the model, there's presumably a reason for that. If we're pretty much just exposing that by wrapping it, is that a smell or?
I feel like we can create a class method that generates these scopes. Oh man, I'm feeling it so much. We could do this.
So you prefer something that creates all of the scopes rather than this, which just uses a generic scope and allows you to pass params?
Well, I mean, if line 33 through 44 is like this is our preferred way of doing it, then that way at least we're not circumventing the preferred way. We're just
so what I guess I would I don't know, what gets me with what I like about this is it's clear, and wherever you call it, you would be calling it like this. If we created some magic method that created all of these scopes, that's where I get Ruby Black Magic kind of frustrates me when I see something that I'm like, I can't do def blah, if you know what I mean. I can't find where this is defined, so then I have to, again, that's
fair
as a newbie.
No,
that's an issue, if you know what I mean. But as you learn browse a bit better, you start to understand how to then figure out how and where these things are kind of.
Let me just search for part of the word. Yeah.
So yeah, let's do the order scope, but
Okay.
then filter by, order by. I'm trying to think of a name, but let's go with the order scope for now. And then you want in the order, you basically, I think you want a rel table. So in the implementation already, yeah, I think you want something like rel underscore table.
Oh,
Field, yeah.
but then that would be, wouldn't it be
But-
more like
No,
column?
that's a rel table. And then I think as a method call, you stick in the field. Not as a method call, but from as an array call, like a rel table and then square brackets from the field, yeah. And then you have that equal greater than sign, whatever that's called. And then the direction. I think that should work.
Did I break this? I'm just thinking I can spin up a Rails console just to test this, right? Quite easily.
Yeah. That would be great.
Checking I haven't hacked too much stuff before. I probably should commit soon. Okay. Come on, Rails. There we go. Just needed a bit of communication, all right?
Oh, what is a rel table? This is a object that.
Yeah, it's an object around this model that creates basically a table definition for this specific model. So it'll reference whatever the table name is called.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
So would we do it like a symbol or just?
We can try both. Do a symbol and then do the string. It should both should work. Let's see. Select and then.
So do I need to?
There is an order by there, but I wonder if there was one already before.
Just do it to SQL, but
to SQL.
yeah.
Oh, that was there anyway, wasn't it?
So there is an select from. So it doesn't like that.
I mean, can I try just kind of doing build, or is that definitely not going to work?
That's right.
Oh, okay. So it's the table. Let me paste in because I'm like just dictating stuff. So I'll paste in Zoom chat. So if you can see that, basically you want to do rel from and then dot password, like the direction. I'm not sure how to do that. Let me think.
Oh yeah.
So it's no easy way to specify the direction, I guess.
There's two sorting methods in Ruby, aren't there? And I can't remember for the life of me when and why we
which to sort methods?
But then I think this is the right one because I think the other one evaluates locally rather than on the service that brings back all the records. And I think there's sort maybe rather than order by, but I'm sure that we don't like that one.
Yeah, I think you want order.
Yeah, the sort acts on an array, and the order by is basically a active record thing that
Perfect.
creates the SQL.
Let's just check. There's no chance that we've already done this.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, so this would be doing what you had suggested, where we just have maybe 2 to cheat for the moment. So we just have.
Oh, look, go back down. Do you see what, go there. Do you see what happened? So there RL table name dot lower dot ask.
Yeah, so like I don't see an easy way to call direction
That's
dynamic.
all right,
So,
all right.
so you can do order scope ascending and order scope descending.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, we can call. I mean, if ask is a method or property of this thing, like we could just call. That's the direction that we call.
Yeah, we can call send, but we don't usually.
That was what I
call
had in my head
send.
earlier. Yeah. Send with something we.
So maybe in this instance is actually okay, because like that's not something that, so we don't usually want to call send on methods or on stuff that comes from the user, right? Because then you can
Right.
do all kind of very bad stuff. But when you do it for like very hard-coded things, it's probably okay.
We shouldn't need lower, should we? Or should we?
I don't know what lower is. Oh, that must be lowercase. So
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
lowercase, but I don't think we need to. I
What
don't
I'm
know.
saying.
I feel like for this, probably not.
You see, this is where it's very specific for the field name. Sometimes you want it lowercase, sometimes you really want to keep the case in place.
Well, I think I jumped the gun with my reload before the file finished Rubu copying and saving.
Oh. Wow. Order scope ask, order scope desk. That's an improvement. That's definitely an improvement, right? Oh, hey, David.
Oh, hi, Paul. I didn't actually mean to join the back-end pair programming. I'm so sorry.
Whoa.
Came at the tail end. I actually have to go and give
That's
a
like showing up to a party and being like, "Whoa, I didn't actually mean to come here."
Between me and you, I would like to stay here because this would be much more fun than what I'm about to go do. Go to the reliability stand-up and talk about our pages FCL. But yeah.
Well, I was singing your praises earlier, David, on the thing that I copied, tagged you in the other day about your awesome paginated tab search. What's it? Assuming you can take credit for that anyway. I'm not sure if somebody else did all the hard work. And
Oh, thank you very much, Lee. Much appreciated.
This looks nicely. I think
it's a step in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
One small iteration on the bigger. Assuming nobody kind of shouts and says, "Oh no, that's not good," because I should hard code the list of available.
So we should, like, we definitely should. Like, we do want an allow list of the fields. I do think we'll want to do that. And it looks like organization and organization ask and organization desk are interesting. But I think this is pretty good.
So I'm not gonna, it doesn't matter, I'm not gonna worry about shoehorning or like dependencies of doing this before my MR, because I don't think it'll be a complete can of worms. I think we'll find a fairly logical first step.
Yeah. I would consider, the pain of testing is meant to be a signal. And so if writing tests is like, I just can't stand this, maybe it's even more profitable for you to find an easier to test abstraction that creates more reusability of something. Like that happens sometimes.
Yeah, so so this is very prone to, do they call it copy pasta, or you know, I copied this line and I forgot to change the ask to a desk, and therefore I should really write a test case for all of these. But this kind of avoids that potential concern, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I don't really need to write tests for all of these different.
No, just for one of them maybe. And like, yeah, that's kind of nice. It's a nice way.
Interesting. Awesome. Conscious of everyone's time, super helpful
Yeah.
as always.